we're gonna go ahead and look at how do we tackle errors and debug them when they occur while doing programming. Okay, so welcome to part 4 of the VBA thing. In case you haven't gone ahead and subscribed, please do feel free to subscribe and as well as drop in a comment. For this, we are at the moment we are learning everything with regards to Excel automation, and we are in part 4 and part 3 we were discussing on how do we write the first macro. Lots of examples for you understanding everything. And today again we will be going ahead and looking at further examples and errors and debugging on it. So the first thing that we be looking at here is what are the types of errors that we probably have. So these are the very high level errors and things that you may get, and how do we tackle them. Just a very high level overview. Syntax errors comes in when you type in a command incorrectly with a spelling mistake perhaps, and maybe you're supposed to be closing a string with the quotes. If you don't know what's a string, don't worry about it. But a string is nothing but a sort of a value that you probably are giving it, like a constant. So that if you don't close, you'll have to you're supposed to be giving that with a double quotes so that the system will know. Okay, so please take that whatever text or anything that you're giving as just as such, no modification whatsoever. So in other words, they are not variables in it. So compile errors, we'll see what these are and what's the use of optional explicit, and how do we use break and step intos, and error description, error handling, debugging code that has successfully ran but it's not given a correct result. So we'll be running through these things, and of course these windows are probably been a sort of a refresher. If you have a look at my the previous videos, all these things are there explaining what each window does, and you may want to have a look at it before going ahead further in this. So coming to the actual part of it, things here. So I have a sample here. Let's say in your day-to-day work, you are having there's something like data, and you're trying to check the thing. So the example that I've taken is let's say you have business units and antivirus, and if your business is asking you to check on the compliant data, let's say you have an Excel data and everything, and you keep getting this like week on week, and you don't want to keep repeating the process over and over again. How do we go ahead and import the data that you get with just 2 or 3 clicks, which I'll show you right away. So at this moment, so I have the Vba Editor. That's the Vba Editor opened. If you want to open this, you just have to press Alt plus F11, or otherwise you can go to the view menu and click on the view macros, and type some word which is not here, and click, and this create will get enabled, and you can create a new macro as well. So there are 2 ways to go to it. Pretty simple. And you probably, if you have any queries on it, please feel free to drop in a comment. I'll be happy to reply to it. Okay, so in this thing, how do we what happens if you go ahead and make some mistakes and things like, for example, let's say you make a spelling mistakes. That's the first thing which we were talking about here, which is the syntax error. So let's say you type in, okay, so let's say you go ahead and type something here, and there is a compiler error which comes back with it. Generally you do get sort of an information saying what is required in here, and it says that the expected expression is wrong. So let's say if d is equal to 1, for example, we'll just give a random thing. So it's asking again, you're supposed to be putting then or go to there. So since it's an if statement, you're supposed to be typing it then, and we can go ahead with it. The syntax error what I was talking about is, let's say if I type here, again that's a mistake. If you type in, it'll come back and give an error. So those kind of an error can be suppressed by correcting your spellings, or making sure that within codes are in place, and proceed with it. Okay, so and we'll see the other things as to how do we go with the option explicit and other things while I execute this code. This code basically what it does is, it has a if I put a start a line with that, it means that that's a comment. So basically in O4, that's this cell, we are trying to find the percentage of it. That's just nothing but we're trying to take a percentage of this divided by this. So that's what I put, m divided by l. So that's what this code is coming up. So for example, I'll show you. If I do this, it does give you a percentage. Now if you're curious as to how I got this, it's very simple. I'm just going ahead and recording the macro here, record macro, here we go, and just saying okay, and then click OK. Okay, and I'm stopping the macro there. And then when you go to option 3, and this part is what I've just copied. You can type that particular so let me take this fully and I'll explain. So this line, you can also type it like this. It's the same thing. I've made it a little simpler there. That's it. So I've got that done by, and this one is copying this full formula completely till here. So like what you do is, like, if you double click it, it'll go ahead and fill the entire thing. So div 0, there are best practices that you normally can use in your formula, so that when there is an error, it'll just give a blank and all these things, using if error and then divide it. So I think probably you are, and that's one thing. And instead of we having this, one more easy way to do it is, for example, copy range of, like that. I'm showing you. Dot copy, and then you can just for ease of sake, you can do paste special. There you go. So this is the same thing I'm doing here, but since it's a recorded method, I'm having these two lines. I've just recorded these two for ease of use, and that's what it says. It's copying down the formula to the cells down to 8. This is the same thing I'm doing there. Okay, and then I'm setting the formula, the number format for all these things as percentage. Generally you go ahead and do this like this, setting this as percentage and clicking OK. Instead of doing all these things, just one line code, like selecting which range that you want, dot number format, and the format that you have. Okay, and currently you can see that it has two decimal places. I'm just going to make it one for how the macro works and everything. And finally we are selecting this one, okay, and making it yellow. Okay, now you can see that purposefully I put yellow here as with one L. Let's see what happens if we run that. And again, this one, this particular cell, row 1 of O, that's row and column O, I'm trying to put the current date. Okay, Now here again I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and we'll run this code and see how these things, this one helps you. Okay, and okay, so let's start here. Just minimize it. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to run this code. Okay, you can run here, or you can go ahead and click view and click run. So I'm going to do that now. As soon as I click, okay, before I do, I'll just delete these things because I've put it manually. And let's see, so this is the thing. So we'll go ahead and run the code here. Okay, so you can see there is no error which actually popped up, neither there is a date, and that's when so you can see here, even though I'm supposed to be giving, I've typed in a date with DAT, which eventually doesn't mean anything to the VBA macro, and that's when you type option explicit. Like the reason is, if there is a variable, it'll point out that particular variable is not defined, so or it'll come back and say option explicit. Okay, sorry, it is not optional, it is option explicit. So when you run this code now, again I'll do it, it'll come back and say that there is an error there because it looks that as a variable, so it says variable not found. So you can correct that now, and also that is the reason why it is actually, even though the data is there, you can see here the data is there, I'm talking about here, and it has just colored it blank instead of filling it as yellow. So I'm setting it as no fill, and then correct these errors, and let's try to, and again you can see that it's in break mode, and you can say, you can just stop it and rerun. Let's say what it says again, this one is an error which we deliberately made, so we can correct that too, saying that that's a date. And now again I've stopped it and I rerun, see how good, see what happens. There you go, the date comes in correctly, that's today's date, and yellow, and everything is perfectly fine for you. So why do we need to take so much of pain? Let's say if you wanted to go ahead and keep doing this over and over and again, and you have a data, something like let's say you get a raw data, keep getting raw data like like this from someone every day, that will keep increasing and so on. At this moment I've just written a code which is like here in module 2. You don't worry if you don't understand this, I'll just try to make you understand, because as things go further you will be able to understand far better than what is now, and it'll make things very clear. So this code eventually is allowing you to import the raw data that you have into this particular cell and do all the things that we just did. Let's say you have run this code on yesterday, maybe, let's say we'll put it as 6th, and all these dates, everything needs to be updated, for example. Okay, so what you can do is just close this. As soon as you download the data, that's the raw data here, you can, once you run this code, it'll just go ahead and copy the data what is there onto here. Okay, so just for ease of use, I've just copied this, and I'll just make it back here. There you go. Okay, so now we are ready to go ahead and run this. Let's say just for testing purposes, I'll just copy this down. only then we'll know whether that particular data is being copied here or not. Okay, so this is one more thing which you can do. Instead of going ahead and clicking on macros like this, you can just simply go ahead and designate a button like which I'm going to do right now. Here we go, and call it import data, and make it a little cuter. Okay, and once you do that, click on assign macro and select whatever macros we have. So click on import. The import macro is this. Okay, and this is the macro which we recorded, so we don't need that. And this is the macro which we used initially for understanding this. Okay, now going back here, so I'm just going to click on it. So this is the we are getting this through this particular this one, module 2. I'm selecting raw data. As soon as I click open, the file will be opened, and the data from there will be automatically pasted here, and the percentage will be copied, the date will be updated, and the color should be done. Here we go. That's it. It's all done. Just 1 or 2 clicks. It's all over. And you need to keep doing this over and over and again. So it will be very, very useful. Okay, so this is the way that you keep reusing it, and you can see these the values are updated from that particular scene. Just for testing purposes, I'm just going to open and see to see if the code works fine. So all 85, 90, 85, 85, 90, 85, 176. So the data has perfectly copied over here correctly. So I hope it makes sense for you eventually. So that's what we are trying to get into. Taking it slow and steady is the way to get things worked out. So that's the whole point here. And there's one more thing which we need to check back here is this breaks and step into an error handlers. So we'll do that now. Alright, so let's say you wanted to pause and see if the value is coming in correctly or not. Okay, for example, if I put a for loop, don't worry if you don't understand what's a for loop. Okay, so here, see, so instead of you getting an annoyed message like keep popping up, you can just go ahead and suppress that for the time being. If you uncheck this and click OK, and for example, let me retype that. There we go, and it will not give a pop-up, but it will still check your errors, check the things, and give it as red. Remember, at the same time, these things were not pointed out. Some errors will be pointed out if it is a syntax error based on the VBA, but there are few things which the macros will not know. That's when you use option explicit to get to see whether there is an error with the variables that you have used. Okay, so for example, just randomly we are trying to go run a loop. Loop is nothing but let's say you wanted to, I'll put it as like 3 times, let's say, maybe, so that it'll be easy. And then message box so what will happen is it'll give a message box with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can go ahead. So let's say you wanted to pause it as soon as this comes up. Okay, that's when you do, that's what you can just do. Just clicking on that will pause the code from executing it, and we can go ahead further. And again, the immediate window that we were talking about earlier here, so I'm just going to get that one here. Here we go. So it's empty. So debug.print of I will give you the value of I while the macro runs like here. Okay, so I'll just pause it here. so that you can see the values like side by side here. So let me, and it's not going to proceed. You can put any number of pauses here. Okay, I'm clicking OK, because we have, since we have used option explicit, there is, so how do we go ahead with it? Dim I as integer. Now it will work correctly. Okay, so you can see that the message box has worked, and you can see that the value is coming here. And if I run this again, second time the message box comes in, because we are running this for like 3 times, looping it, and then again we're running for 3 times again. So you can come here and see this is the use of this is one of the best use that you have for immediate window. One more thing that you can do is for a variable, if you hover over it, it will tell you what is the actual value that it has taken for that particular time. So instead of you using these things, so that's the use of this particular one. So if I proceed with it, so let's say it will come here and just do everything with it and proceed. You can just press, so you can see there it says F5. So function F5 will also take you there, and control break is to pause a running macro. For example, if I run this, okay, 3, okay, and if you want to pause the video, I'm just going to press control break. Okay, you can, for some reason my laptop don't have a break button. That's surprising. Okay, so hope it makes sense to what we have here. So going back to the thing, so that's what this is, and an error description. Okay, so let's close this up. Okay, and let's say you try doing this, like, or let's go back to this code, and I'll just give you an overview of what this is happening. Basically here we are trying to set the current workbook as a old workbook, just for reference sake, where we can activate it when activated, meaning it will be at the background. So let's say if I'm working on this is in background. If I'm working on this one is a background. So when I use the command activate, it will bring in to the foreground, so that the macro will run on that particular sheet. So we are trying to open this is the open dialog box that you see. The pop-up comes in. If you click cancel, it will just exit the whole program and go away, and then it will open the file that you've selected here, and then keeps it as open new book, and with that it's going ahead and copying that particular range, that's like starting from here, and it just copies till there. Okay, so that's what this line of code does. Copies, goes and activates the the open book, which is the current sheet, that's the contents sheet. Selects that particular sheet, clicks on cell number this one, M4, that is this one, and pastes that value like that, and then it closes the file that we have here, and comes back and runs the code that we have here, so that the formatting is already done, and it goes on. Don't worry if you don't understand too much of it. It's pretty complex at this point for you to understand every single thing that I'm talking about here with respect to the coding part of it. Okay, so let's say if there is an error which comes up. Okay, on error, we'll just type it, go to error. Okay, that's, and then we come here and we type error, and you say message box and error occurred. don't want this particular thing to run every time you run the program. So that's why I'm placing an exit sub. So what happens is when the code runs in, it'll just come out of it, but when there is an error in any of this particular line of code will throw it to ERR is nothing but the message box. So it'll just come here and it'll run through it. There are other things like on error, resume next. That is nothing but it'll just, even if there is an error, just ignore it, go ahead and run the macro as and when it comes in. So that's the thing. So let's say if there is some error, purposefully we'll do it. For example, we'll say we'll just create some error like this. Okay, and as soon as you run, it'll say error occurred. Okay, so let's say, and we'll try a different type of an error. Okay, so that is how it is. It's gonna go ahead and jump its error and go on. Error description part of it is nothing but if you type in with a colon error description, it'll give you the error description of what we have as well. So I think this is I think we have covered almost all these things. Feel free to let us know if there are any challenges or any queries that you have. I'll be happy to assist. Okay, cheers then, take care, bye bye.